Facebook to construct the stream, and then we'll get started. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Story Hour, the last Story Hour of 2021. I'm your host, Daniel Marcus. My unparalleled co-host is Laura Blackwell, and I hope you're all healthy and safe and taking care of yourselves and your loved ones amidst a weird and shifting science fictional landscape. I started Story Hour during kind of the first pandemical lockdown last year, with the intention really of it being kind of a small thing, just me and my writer friends wanted a place for us to hang out and read our work to each other and to kind of build a little bit of community. And it's just grown like crazy. We've had probably about 150 authors through here, and among them, some of the top writers in the field and some fantastic newcomers and everything in between. So it's really been just phenomenal. It's really surpassed Laura and my expectations. So the deal here is that we turn to a time-honored and ancient form of entertainment, and that is sitting around the fire telling each other lies. So every week we have two authors, about 30 minutes each, doing exactly that. So tonight we're extremely happy to have Kate Heartfield returning and Fran Wilde here for the first time. So welcome to you both, and thank you so much for joining us. Each week we also ask our guest authors to suggest a worthy cause, which we shamelessly shill. So if you're fortunate enough to be able to help financially, that's great. And if not, that's fine too. Just be aware that these entities and people are out there doing great work. So Kate is reading tonight for UNICEF. We all have heard about UNICEF since we were kids. I think it's been around for about 75 years. It works in over 190 countries and territories to save children's lives, defend their rights, help them fulfill their potential from early childhood on through adolescence. Fran is reading tonight for Women Against Abuse. That's womenagainstabuse.org. And the mission of that organization is to provide quality, compassionate, and non-judgmental services in a manner that fosters self-respect and independence in persons experience intimate partner violence, and to lead the struggle to end domestic violence through advocacy and community education. So that's unicef.org and womenagainstabuse.org. We're going to open the program tonight with Fran Wilde. Two-time Nebula Award winner Fran Wilde has so far published 7 books and over 50 short stories for adults, teens, and kids. Her stories have been finalists for 6 Nebula Awards, a World Fantasy Award, 3 Hugos, 3 Locus Awards, and a Lodestar. They include the Nebula and Compton Crook winning debut novel Updraft, and her Nebula winning Best of NPR 2019 debut middle grade novel Riverland. Her short stories appear in Asimov's Tor, Beneath Cecil Skies, Shimmer, Nature, Uncanny, Jonathan Strahan's 2020 Year's Best, and elsewhere. Fran directs the genre fiction MFA concentration at Western Colorado University and also writes nonfiction for publications including The Washington Post, The New York Times, and Tor.com. And you can find her on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and at franwilde.net. So Fran, take it away.
That bio gonna take off of my time for the whole thing? I gotta shorten it somehow. But Shimmer is never coming off. Shimmer is gonna stay there forever. Daniel, Laura, Cliff, everyone, thank you so much for having me here. It is a pleasure to be on Story Hour tonight. This is my first time joining you guys, but hopefully not the last. And I'm really excited today. I'm going to read my story from Rebuilding Tomorrow, which was an anthology that came out a couple of years ago. The premise is, what if the apocalypse didn't end the world? And it was also about disability in science fiction. And I was so pleased that this story was selected for Neil Clark's Best Science Fiction of 2020. And it being an anthology, sometimes anthology stories don't get seen a lot. So I am very appreciative of the opportunity to be able to read it to you tonight. So here we go. Rhizome by Starlight. A propagation manual for the Glass Islands, Year 2, Day 120. Remember, removing kudzu is different than splitting a rhizome. Remember also, keep the vines away from the greenhouse. Keep yourself within. With kudzu, you must reach in, rip it all out, then throw it into the sea. Don't think it's the only way. There can be deviation when splitting. Preservation is your goal, either for yourself or for the plant. Learn to discern the difference. So much has been lost to the sea, the heat, but we will continue to tend. Edward Green, Senior Conservationist, Longitude Seed Bank and Laboratory. My great-grandfather's words form a grid, each letter a seed planted neat and black on the yellowing page. My mother's notes, scrawled below her mother's, come after and before the kudzu took her. I can't quite read them, but I understand. Year 42, day 87. I am turned to salt and gnarl, genes and seeds. I must go before I crush you. The wind calls through the vines for me to follow her, but I'd promised them all that I'd tend the greenhouse. As the last of us, I can't leave. Longitude Laboratory trusted us with a duty to keep the seeds safe. The greenhouse will fall without me, and the seeds will disappear. Birds might have dropped the kudzu. We, my great-grandfather's colleagues' experiments, that is, may have made it worse. With the rest of his laboratory atop the sea-surrounded glass and metal island, grandfather had tried to help us withstand the heat, to be resilient despite everything, to the pain of being left behind. The kudzu, when it took the island over and was the most determined thing he knew, but he swore to never try that. His colleagues did, and were lost to it. Later, my grandmother and then my mother decided to let the vines have the daylight, to tend our rhizomes at night, to not divide too much, to keep the greenhouse and defend it. And our promise, I fulfill it each day. The original seeds are carefully preserved by my family, the last of the Longitude team. We stayed and tended the past. We protect the new growth as well. We last. My joints creak as I work. I cannot quit our promise. Before she left, before the small bones in her fingers finished hardening together as her skin turned to bark, my mother had said the same. She'd wrapped around me one last time and told me to be strong, to not give up. I could feel her fighting against herself, wanting to hold tight. She tried to protect me as much as the seeds, but I have no one to worry about crushing. I've made sure. When I reach fingers deep and sharp into the dirt and pull the young vines away from the greenhouse, I do it only on my own account. When I fling the kudzu over the dawn-bright cliff where the greenhouse is perched, its runners spread like fingers grasping for purchase, then drop. Once, a gardener would make clippings or split rhizomes as a scientist might split genes. Now, I am the last gardener, and what I do is weed. Kudzu moved fast before. Year 3, day 47, they called it mile a minute once. Now it is smarter and faster. Those words in less neat letters, an aging hand with trembling ascenders and descenders. The manual evolved as we, those who stayed behind, who evolved into our roles, learned not just to tend, but how to survive. My grandmother wrote happily about her palms sprouting. My mother braided the flowers in my hair into a crown. There are clippings in the manual, how to care for seeds, how to call for help. Not that this does any good. The vines got the radio tower a long time ago. There's a waterlogged photo of a great-grandfather as a young man with a cane standing with the others in neat white coats as they prepared to isolate this small corner of earth on top of the world, all somewhat less than those who made the ships, but still determined to save as much as they could. There are pages torn out of the manual, a whole decade's worth. One section is burned. There are drawings, much later, of leaves bigger than a man, of vines that double in size and grasp in a single night. I do not know who made those, but the ink is rust-colored. My mother, after everything, read the manual aloud to me by Starlight, as my great-grandfather had read it to her. She'd found herself alone, read the manuals on propagation, my grandmother's investigations, her grandfather's experiments. By then, the others had been lost, some to science, some to the sea. She did it so that we would keep our promise to tend the seeds and keep them safe for those who would return. That was the promise. She divided, grew, and taught me from the manual, she said. That's how I learned my words, how I understood that we were born to preserve, to weed, to count the days until we could no longer do so. I was small then. A breeze could turn my head, but she taught me to focus, to range the island as I do now, digging deep into the dirt, stopping the vines, looking for green shoots. It was left to us to tend the seeds because something in grandfather's genes wasn't right. That's what he wrote in the manual. He and others like him stayed with the greenhouse, while others, much stronger and better, found safety on the ships. At least that's what the neat seed letters say. His young daughter, her genes like his, remained too. She and we became the promise he made to stay, to be the gardeners. Each day that my great-grandfather and eventually my grandmother marked in the manual was a promise to keep the seeds away from the vines and ourselves away too. Now, as the stars shine above and reflect on the ocean below, I make the same promise in my own ways. Today, the island smells of bark and dirt. The kudzu, some of it as thick as my own limbs and stronger, is winning. But there's a small scent on the wind, something not kudzu. I sniff it out, a tendril rising from where I'd worked the day before. A gardener is never finished until they give in. Sometimes when the sun tries to beat its way through those panes, I trace my great-grandfather's seed script, all that I know of him, with a fingertip in the bright when there's only the one star and it's way too close. The glass island reflects off the sea and the day heats up. The thick reaching vines that wrap our island love this. I do not. Day 167, a small apocalypse in a larger one. The plants I salvaged have escaped the greenhouse. The trees around us are changing. I've brought what I can back inside. I've set a boundary. I'm training to protect what we can, but the kudzu has already taken several of my best colleagues. I trace the scent, find a ginger stem, pluck it and take it with me to keep it safe from the vines. On my own pages, I make notes about the latest rain-driven encroachments. The vines this time were fat and fast-moving, and just enough had shoots that I could grab onto and pull myself over until I found their root ball. I'd used my knife. In the propagation manual, I make my own notes. My spelling is almost non-existent. Mostly, I draw what I find and mark how-tos in with stick figures as well as the words I know. Propagation, structure, rhizome, weed. I make kudzu ink. It's a bright green but fades fast to a sour gray. My mother read the old pages to me by Starlight, the ones with blue ink like sky and sea, or purple ink. She read as she plucked small leaves from my skin and hair. She used to save those for the archives. Day 1. I'd written the first day after she'd gone. The vines are invasive, but the greenhouse is too. I drew both twined together. The greenhouse glittered, a spoiled frame, 3 plexiglass panes in the clearing I'd maintained all these years. The greenhouse held a seed archive once, and the kudzu is still after it. The only way to save the archive is to beat back the vines. Day 1, I write each day. Each day I pull up more rhizomes and put them in the archive. I didn't write how I miss you, how I remember you on my very skin. Instead, I changed the calendar, stopped the count. Her mistake, I'd reasoned, was she counted too much and on too few things. On my drive for survival, on others coming to get the seeds if we waited long enough, on us beating the roots back, on finding a way around the twisting in of our own genetics. She stuck to the book's way, dates and memories. I keep my own time. There's no one here to tell me different. I'm all alone in the greenhouse, a splitting knife in one hand and a bucket in the other, ready for what comes next. It's raining outside, so I figure that next will be soon. In the morning, I wake to a bucket full of cuttings, a new bottle of ink, and the roots grown again, this time into a wall all around the greenhouse that nearly cuts off the light. The kudzu mutes the sound of ocean against island. The vines rise so high and thick, they dim my view of everything but the stars. I realize, paging back through the manual, that I've made a mistake. I can count the days even when I refuse to number them. 100 since she'd gone, and thousands since the world had, but they'd all been wrong. Isolating the seeds and us meant the vines would win all around us. All of them, somewhere out there, got caught by the vines or sea one by one. I won't get caught. I go out with my splitting knife to pare a path. And it's all over again, and I've got the roots divided and pushed back from the greenhouse. I make a new entry in the book. The pages are thick, the early ones from the damp, the later ones because I've sewn in sheets of bark and homemade leaf vellum, and my writing is worse than everyone's. It's time, I write, to go. Day 1, this is a picture of the greenhouse, the sole structure still standing on the research base that used to be on top of a city. This is a picture of a shovel. This is a rhizome, not a root by any means, but a stem that's evolved to survive. This is me with a cane that I carved myself from a kudzu root, and my root knife. And this is my mother with hers. She made the cane, still in the corner, beneath the big plexiglass pane when her grandfather was training her, made it easier to walk and bend, or at least for me, makes it harder to fall. I made mine when the vines tried coming in the house. Day 1, again. This is a picture of me scouring the greenhouse for any last seeds and rhizomes. I enter them in the book, recording what will come with me as I travel. I found some hostas, ginger, irises, bamboo, of course, but bamboo's almost as bad as the root plants. I sketch a bit of it on the page anyway. Day before 1. This is a picture of the last person who came to the island. He shouted as he climbed the glass cliffs that he'd heard of my great-grandfather, using the name from the clippings, that he'd come for our seeds. My mother had hidden us from him, but forgot the manual. He'd poked through the greenhouse, seen our cots, our kettle, shouted for us to come out. He said he was a scientist, invited the air to go with him, said he had a boat. We refused to listen. Before he gave up, he searched the greenhouse once more, found the book, paged through it. Seeds are like stories, he'd said. They change depending on where they're planted. But he didn't stay. The kudzu frightened him the way it moved so fast. He'd lowered his small boat back down the cliff and sailed away. I watched him go. Before he stepped from our island, he put a small rhizome on the ground. Turmeric. A gift, then, he'd said. That's how I knew what I needed to do and where I would have to go when I had a boat, but I didn't go then. My mother had waited until the vines drove the scientist away, then took the rhizome into the greenhouse to protect it. We stay, she said, until we can't anymore. We keep what's wrong here from getting out into the world. She often said that. She meant the kudzu, I think, but she might have meant more. But she's gone now, and it's just me and my seeds and plants, and I've decided. Day one, it's not enough to keep our promise. Hers to tend the seeds, mine to stay safe. It's not enough to stay anymore. I think she saw the danger in us, but not in the world beyond. I work until my hands ache for days and the bones stiffen into each other. Soon I won't be able to use the knife either, but I'll still be able to paddle. Day one, I've pieced together a boat out of the greenhouse and a tree fall that nearly took me too. Day one, I've filled my bag with seeds and rhizomes, kept my mind from wondering what happens when we all go out into the world. The greenhouse was a nursery, not just a seed bank, I know, because I was born in the greenhouse, like Mother was. I say it in past tense because I am the last to grow here. Day one, this is a picture of me climbing into my boat, which used to be a greenhouse. This is the sail I've woven out of hemp and reeds and bamboo. That took a long time. This is a picture of the sound of the boat creaking in the wind. The boat groans when I let it down the cliff, hand over hand. It thuds when I lower myself to it, wave slapped and crackling pitch seal on the plant parts, a ghostly chime on the metal, a bit of a sour sound on the plexiglass. But I'm light and I'm learning to speak the boat's language as it drops to the sea and I fall after it. The promise was not to leave the greenhouse, and I haven't, not really. The clearing's already filling in, I bet. I have the manual and both canes and my knife. Let the vines have their way. I put up the sail like the scientists did. It fills and the wind and currents take me where they want, straight out from the island. When I look back, the island seems made of roots wrapped around and through pieces of glass and metal like the greenhouse grew from, all the way down to where the sea catches it. Day, this is a picture of me, windblown. I can see more in the clear water beneath the boat, metal and glass, window and frame, the wide roots twisting around everything, holding on, binding it all together. Our small home on top was a last enclave, a forgotten garden, an attempt to cling to a memory of ourselves. It grows smaller in the distance as I let the sea take me out toward the rising stars and the gleam of another glass island far ahead. Day one, it's a start, and that's what all of these are, starting points. This bright light out there is mine. The ocean heads me straight for it, and my past splits away from my present. But the gleam isn't glass. I've never seen a light that sharp before. If I had time and my hands weren't bent in and clutched at the tiller, I'd draw what it looked like. It deserves to go in the manual, even if no one's here to read it. In my pack are all the roots and rhizomes I've ever found, plus the turmeric and the book, the one with my great-grandfather's writing, which I can just barely read, and my grandmother's and my mother's and mine. The turmeric's gone gray and soft over time, despite my tending. Soon enough, and with some paddling, the island shines right ahead of me, except that it's moving, the spray blowing from each side of it. It is an enormous ship, sleek and fast, unlike my boat. And when ropes are lowered, I am lifted, uprooted from the sea. And from the concerned looks and the motions, I can see they think they're rescuing me. They tut over my hands, try to get them to unclench my paddle until I show them how to slide the tool from my grip, until I show them my plants, and then they wrap me in concern and isolate me. Then I must wait while they spray me down and try to feed me something awful and gelatinous. And the sun comes out and all I want to do is sleep, but that seems to be the noisiest time on the ship. They take me below, away, and in a bright room where my boat and my plants wait, they pinch me hard with something sharp. And I see pale fluid well into it. It looks again, and this night they've found someone to come speak to me. He is much older, but I recognize him. He knows the same words I do, but they're ordered differently. How long and how far, repeat and repeat until I frown at him. How can he not remember? A story is like a seed. I was a child, though, and child memories grow deep and hold fast. Perhaps he visited many islands. So then I pull the manual from my pocket and begin to show him his story. His eyes light up. The scientist remembers. You were there. A companion arrives, smelling of sharp chemicals and very white, clean clothing. She gestures to my arms and legs and says something unintelligible. He frowns. She says you're lying, that you cannot possibly be your great-grandfather's child. There was no one left when we found the seed bank, and you're too frail to have come all that way on purpose in a rusted boat. The woman tries to take my book away. The turmeric falls from the pages, and the scientist puts a careful shoe over it to hide it, to tend it. When I yell this time, he leaves with the rest of them, tall and long-limbed, taking my plants and my book too. I expected the ocean to steal me, like my mother said it stole most people from before, but I didn't expect it to be like this. My island passed and my boat passed, and this present divide again, and I am many stories now. They want to know where the others are. I ask them the same question. They will not answer, so I don't answer. I stopped counting beyond myself a long time ago. I draw on their walls. Day 1, this is a picture of my mother with her cane and her knife. This is a picture of my great-grandfather with his instruments and machines. This is us dividing and splitting. This is Gene and Rhizome. These are no one knew we were there. They, the smooth, sharp-smelling woman and the scientist who's also wearing white, squint at the drawings. Possible. That is their sense of their words, the set of their shoulders, and yet so much of what I say is possible. I am possible. I pull some leaves from my hair and hide them in my bag. They are scientists, I begin to understand, but nothing like my great-grandfather. They've forgotten so much, dirt and starlight, the ways nature finds. They keep me confined to the shadows of my room for far too long. I begin to fade to gray. My hair no longer flowers. My skin begins to split. I'm starting to go to crave starlight, then sunlight, sea air, and dirt, even kudzu. I desire growing things, not poking things. They will let me have none. So I wait and wilt, and then finally the scientist comes back. He greets me again, but with more respect. You are what you say. Take me outside to the deck. I need starlight. He starts to shake his head, but I hold out my hand. A thin leaf curls there. He stares, touches it, then takes it hungrily. He opens the door, and in the light and sea air, I begin what I've promised I'd never do. I let myself go wild. My arms and legs itch with it. A tendril of vine curls beneath my ear. I cannot stay here. They'll take me apart. He looks a long time at me, then at the leaf in his hand, then shows me where my boat is kept. The bag of seeds and rhizomes is lost. I cannot stay where they've taken so much already. So I go over the metal edge, away from the sharp smells. The wind helps me leave the ship behind once I set my sail again. The scientist grows smaller where he stands by the stern. I scratch behind my ear carefully, look at my arm, then my leg beneath the sack dress I wear. New rhizomes, each their own beginning. I will plant these parts of me somewhere new, everywhere maybe. Someday they'll make their own canes and knives. They'll help hold back the weeds on different islands. And someday perhaps they'll add pages to the book, the manual for propagation made from a different island's plants. This time we'll give what we have of ourselves, growing beyond where we began. Day 1 of many. Thank you.
My, that was just lovely. Thank you so much. Wow. It's our custom between stories just to kind of pause for a moment and let let the work ring for a bit. Gosh. All right, Fran Wilde, thank you. Next on the program, we're very happy to have Kate Heartfield. She is a repeat offender, as we like to call returning visitors to Story Hour. And Kate is the author of The Embroidered Book, a historical fantasy novel. It's coming out in February 2022. Her debut novel won Canada's Aurora Award, and her novellas, stories, and games have been shortlisted for the Nebula, Locust, Crawford, Sunburst, and Aurora Awards. Kate is a former journalist, and she lives near Ottawa, Canada. So, Kate, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and it's lovely to follow Fran. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. I think I'm going to be having those dreams. I'm going to have kudzu running through my dreams tonight. I'm going to read a love story. This appeared in Time Worn magazine, and it's called A Cut Purse Rethinks His Ways, and it's set in 18th century London. Pinch leans over the water at twilight. The stone of London Bridge presses cold against his thighs, nothing like the soft, warm brush of William's fingers. One last thought of his lover, as fleeting as the rush of white water between the arches of the bridge. He'll replace that thought with something new, a new wish bought with old coin. Pinch closes his eyes. In his ears, voices and cartwheels and horses. On his cheeks, mist that reeks of centuries. He grips the bent sixpence, his thumb fitting perfectly into its hollow. The shape of the wish comes almost unbidden and with a flush. Pinch wishes to find love. Transporting, difficult, undeniable love. He thought perhaps William, but William only wanted Pinch as one more wheel in the machine that is William's life. And what machine maker wants a wheel with unpredictable habits? William will not miss him. William will be better off without him. Pinch opens his fingers and opens his eyes. The sixpence catches a piece of light from the setting sun, or perhaps from the lanterns that hang over the doors of the shops that line London Bridge. The coin glints, tumbles, vanishes into the spume. He looks out over the greenish water at the sails slouching on it here and there. And what was that? His friend Shaver asks, leaning over the edge beside him. You're not throwing the king's pictures into the ditch, God help us. It was a crooked sixpence, and likely a bad one at that, Pinch answers. William gave it to me. Most assuredly a bad one then, Shaver says. I can't see our man William wasting a good sixpence on a love token. Shaver puts his big hand on William's shoulder, kindly. You'll forget him by Saturday, Pinch. Shall we see if we can find you some company in Covent Garden? Pinch shakes his head. I don't want company. Let's find some gulls. Night's coming on. They wander over to the west side of the bridge where they'll be walking counter to most of its traffic. As they pass into the tunnel beneath the bulbous mass of Nonsuch House, Pinch ignores the scowls of the people who elbow their way past him. He walks patiently, placidly, until he sees a bit of yellow satin peeking between a brown bodice and skirt. Then he lets his gaze go up to the face and finds it wrinkled and angry, a bonnet in an old-fashioned style, trimmed with far too much lace of good quality. Pinch's knife snicks through the ribbon as his thumb and forefinger grasp one end and pull. The pocket comes loose, comes out, and he has stuffed it up his sleeve before anyone is the wiser. Or so he thinks. He's a few paces beyond the old woman when he hears a shriek, and he runs, pushing people out of his way, rounding a carriage, the word thief echoing through the tunnel. He runs until he's over the bridge and into an alley, and by the time Shaver catches up to him, huffing and sweating, Pinch is laughing. This is how he's meant to live, he thinks. From one moment to the next, no one knows where Pinch will be, least of all Pinch himself. He's bobbing on the waves of London life, and it's a joy. In his room, later, Pinch stares at the 8 objects on his floor. He glowers at the one that doesn't belong. The yellow embroidered linen pocket is empty, set to one side. Its contents stretch across the old rug on his floor, a little glass scent bottle and a silver nutmeg grater. The lady must like punch at parties. A silver thimble, a needle case, a shilling, a key, and a folding knife, its rough wooden handle dark with use. A wicked knife. Not the sort of knife a lady of advanced age and class might carry. It's the twin of a knife Pinch used to own, down to that scratch on the handle, down to its heft in his hand. He lost it in an upstairs room of the Molly house where he met William. What was it, 2 years ago? 3. William was undressing him in some haste. The knife fell out of Pinch's pocket and behind the bed frame, which was nailed to the floor. So they couldn't get the knife, and Mistress Oakshott would not countenance dismantling it, and so that was that. And yet, here is a knife that looks just like it. Pinch rubs his nose to drive away the scent of rosewater and nutmeg. He brings his haul to Fanny in the morning at the sign of the oak. She lines up what he gave her: the thimble, the needle case, the nutmeg grater, the bottle, the pocket itself. He kept the key because he always keeps keys. It seems bad luck to give them away. He gave the shilling to his landlady, and none too soon. And he kept the knife because. Fanny swishes her mouth from side to side, considering. I'll give you 1 and 6 for the lot. Bah, Fanny, the grater alone is worth more in silver. 'Tisn't, and you know it. And why are you bothering with pockets still? I thought you were working with William on his business. His business. Pinch had known William by reputation before he met him, the shadowy figure at the head of London's biggest coining network. Half the bad money in the city came from William's people, or so it was said. If William had ever struck a coin himself, it was long in the past. He spent his days in coffee houses, giving bribes and taking orders and who knows what else. If Pinch had wanted to go into business, he would have stayed in Shropshire and worked at his father's public house. He would have closed his eyes at the end of the day as if they were weighed by pennies, and he would have woken in the morning like a man serving a sentence. No, Pinch is his own man in London and will not be anyone else's. When the day came that William asked Pinch to collect a broken mold from a woman in Southwark, asked it without even looking up from his newspaper, Pinch said no. And then William did look up, and Pinch looked into his wide eyes and lied as lightly as he could, with his blood in his cheeks. He said that he had found someone new. Handsome? William asked, his face white. Pinch could hardly bear to look at that face, as livid and immovable as stone. He let his eyes glaze and held hard to a vision of the future, a vision in which Pinch was trapped in someone else's idea of what he ought to do with his days and nights. Handsome like a god, Pinch answered. I'm sorry for it, William. I'm not one to go then, William said sharply, and that was it. It was ended. And now Fanny wants to know whether Pinch is in William's business. It's no business of hers or anyone else's. Pinch tells her so, takes the 1 and 6 and walks away. At night in Hyde Park, Pinch jostles a man in a brocade coat. Your pardon, sir, he mutters and stumbles around the corner. When he's back in his room alone, Pinch examines what he culled from the men's pocket. Something heavy, wrapped in a handkerchief. A gold snuff box, French by the look of it. A good night's earnings, this. He begins to wrap the snuff box up again and sees the pattern printed on the handkerchief, a map of London. How familiar the curly lettering, the washes of blue and yellow. Pinch once owned a handkerchief just like this one. He doesn't know when or where he lost it. He got out of the habit of consulting it while he was with William, because William knew every alley and lane of the city by heart. William's remarkable brain was a desk of pigeonholes, his thoughts tied up with red ribbon, well ordered. The maps in his mind kept him safe, he said. I've not lived to 30 by luck alone, he told Pinch once, his tone despite the fact that Pinch was only a year younger and luck had served him well enough. William spread his coining operations around the city and never visited any of them in person. He knew where the watch would be, at what times, and he met with his coiners in a pattern of times and places only he fully understood. How dull it would have been to stay with him. Pinch goes home to Moor Lane and buys a tuppence worth of gin for himself and the same each for Shaver, Meg, and Bess, and they all toast His Majesty's health until the lamps go out. Ordinarily, Pinch doesn't watch the ground as he walks. He keeps his eyes at hip height, looking for pockets and purses. Only then does he look at faces. There's no profit to be had in looking at feet. But the next morning is a rainy one, and he happens to trip on an uneven stone in Forest Street and comes crashing down into a puddle of foul-smelling muck. The puddle contains two things: a battered shoe, which makes him wonder, as he always does, who could lose a shoe and keep walking, and a silver coin wedged into the cobblestones. He pulls it out and sees that it's bent. Bent in just the same way as the coin William once gave him as a love token. What's more, it bears precisely the same rough inscription, the word forever scratched in the space between Queen Anne's pointy nose and the letters of her name. The Queen's been dead for 2 years. Nothing is forever. Pinch calculates. In the few days since Pinch dropped the coin into the Thames, it could have come to shore. A mudlark no doubt found it, brought it here, dropped it. It hardly needs an explanation. And yet, God help me, Pinch groans, rising to his feet, the crooked sixpence in hand. He holds it up and says to no one in particular, "Enough, enough." William is still a man of regular habits, it seems. Pinch finds him at Mill's Coffee House in the morning, reading the London Gazette. Pinch sits opposite him. They both glance to see if anyone's in earshot from long habit. This is not a safe place for men to show they are lovers. But of course they aren't lovers, not anymore. "I'm glad to see you, Pinch," says William, letting the newspaper drop. "Are you?" Pinch asks, hopefully. "I am, even if you do look as if you're in trouble." "I'm not," says Pinch defensively. "Well, I am troubled. I keep finding things I've lost in other people's pockets and purses." William frowns. "You mean someone is stealing from you?" "I could hardly blame my stars if they were, but no. I think I made a wish on the Thames," he wants to say, "and I can't help wondering whether I brought some strange consequence upon myself. I suspect the river that flows through this city knows all our heart's desires. I think it's leading me back to you." But he doesn't say any of that aloud. He can't bring himself to say it aloud, not here and now to William. So he says, "I'm sure it's mere coincidence." William's brows knit with concern. "You look as if it's given you a shock." "It has," says Pinch, and laughs nervously. It's given me hope. Hope that things lost once might not be lost forever. Hope is a dangerous thing for men like me." The concern softens and shifts to caution, to the face William wears when he's protecting himself. "You've always liked danger, Pinch, as I recall. Not as much as I like you." And there, a twitch at the corner of the mouth. How Pinch has missed that mouth. I thought there was someone. Pinch shakes his head vigorously. "I won't be reliable, William, not in the way that you need. I won't keep a ledger or regular hours, and my friends are ridiculous, and I have no interest in working for you." "Working for me?" William is shocked into speaking aloud, and then he remembers himself and drops his voice and his gaze, addressing the list of ship arrivals in the Gazette. "I've never wanted you to be anything but yourself. I've given you cause to think otherwise, haven't I? I can be an ass, I know it. You're happier without me. I thought I would be," Pinch says, his voice thick. William coughs. He looks up at the coffee shop, at the bustle of men and a few women, arguing, laughing, frowning. Pinch looks too, and then looks back at the man he loves. He knows he will find no more of the things that he once lost. All that matters is here. And then Pinch laughs, startling William back into looking straight at him with those somber eyes, the same green as the Thames. "I'm happy now," Pinch says. "I'm happy here with you. Drink your coffee, William, and read the Gazette, and just let me sit and look at you, will you? If I'm not too much bother to you." At that, William's mouth curls. He imperceptibly moves the newspaper over to cover his right arm. And under the newspaper, his fingers curl around Pinch's hand and around the bent sixpence within. So that's the first story of the set. And I've got one more shorter one to polish it off. And this one is set on an island, which I think Fran and I were in sync somehow. without knowing it. So this is a shorter one. It's called In Dragonfly Lake, and it appeared in the magazine Kaleidotrope, and it was inspired by reading about spite houses, which are not houses built on spite, but I kind of pretended that they were. They're actually houses that are made to interfere with other people. But I played around with the idea a little bit in this one. So In Dragonfly Lake. My grandfather built this island out of resentment. He brought it 3 miles, truckload by truckload, from land he'd lived on for 39 years. It took him a month's sweat to do it, working alone. He sold his other land to live in this boggy 5-acre patch he got in his father's will. Granddad's older brother, the war hero, got 100 acres to farm. The dragonflies were here already, if you ask me. There have been dragonflies patrolling this lake of sorrows since the time when dragonflies were as big as geese, and all the soils of the world, from friable fear to the thick clay of shame, were mingled in Pangea. 6 months after I moved in to take care of him, Granddad glanced at the oils and brushes under the sofa and asked why I wasn't painting anymore. I don't seem to get much joy from it now. That's the dragonflies, James, he said with his angry little smile. They keep all that nonsense away. And the skeeters, of course. I'd never heard of dragonflies having any effect on soils, but what did I know? After all, I met a woman once who swore her tomatoes would only grow if she lay down in her garden face first and cried at the beginning of every season. The world is made of mysteries. But one morning I noticed a deeper droop to my mouth in the shaving mirror, and I got to wondering. That was long before Google, so I rode to where Granddad kept his Ford 150 and drove to the town library. Gwen and I had fallen out of touch since high school. I'd even forgotten she was the librarian, but we talked and laughed as if no time had passed. She found me a book on insects and leaned in close over my shoulder. I pointed at the illustration. Look at that mouth. The jaws open as big as its head. Do you think it could eat up other things while it's hunting? Bits of, I don't know, happiness? There are limits to the expertise of a small town librarian, James. It says the surfaces of their wings kill bacteria. Maybe some soils die when they touch those wings too. Look at that dust in the ray coming from the window. I bet there's all sorts of dirt. Wonder, love, who knows what else, just looking for a place to settle. I honestly thought I would go back to see her in a few days, but I didn't. Back on the island, I couldn't see the point. I'd watch the dragonflies flitting and hovering, and I'd wonder what happened to every particle of wanderlust kicked up from the shoulders of the interstate, every mote of satisfaction from the cornfields beyond it. Maybe it wasn't true what Granddad said about the dragonflies, but he believed it. It drew him here and kept him here. Granddad knew what he was doing when he built in Dragonfly Lake. No soil getting in but what he brought. No affection, no goodwill. He wanted his resentment to stay good and solid under his feet, built his house upon it to show his intentions. He never did patch things up with his brother, who told Granddad that a man makes the land he needs. I found the letter where he told him that. Like your face, he wrote. By the time you're 50, you've got the land you deserve. So I suppose I deserve this place. When Granddad breathed his last wet breath, I cried from pity. For years, I tried to sell. Nobody wanted a peeling house on an island barely big enough to hold it. People said it was the thought of all that rowing, but the inspectors noted the unpredictability of the soil. Anything could happen to resentment under new ownership. It could get spongy, mossy, melancholy. It could acidify into hatred. Besides, there are fields of confidence all through this country, ribboned with shifting seams of desire, plenty of good land for the taking. I couldn't sell it. I thought maybe I could change it. With Granddad gone, I'd live my life on calm or courage. If it weren't for the dragonflies, maybe I could have. Last spring, I got an invitation to Gwen's wedding in the mail. It sat on Granddad's side table until I realized the RSVP date had passed. I went out and sat on the dock and dropped it into the lake, watched it float like a water bug until it got too heavy. Every month, the cracks in the foundation gape wider and more soil breaks away, falls into the still dark water, into sorrow. On 3 sides of the house, the water of the lake now laps against the siding. The porch is hanging off, pulling on the walls, cracking them on the inside. I hear the house groaning in the night as my grandfather's resentment crumbles away beneath it. How much land does a man require? Tolstoy asked that. I'm not going to wait around to find out. I row out for the last time with my old backpack, some provisions, 2 silver candlesticks, and an old turntable that I might be able to sell. I don't want much to carry. I've no choice but to wander for a while, to tread the soils that others have made, to see what's willing to settle upon my skin, given the chance. The only sound on the lake is the creak and splash of my oars, and overhead, the buzz of a vigilant dragonfly. Thank you very much. That's my 2 stories for the evening. I wish I'd read the happier one first, but there we go. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Kate Heartfield, everybody. 2 wonderful stories. Our first author was Fran Wilde. Thank you also, Fran, for a lovely greeting. And that's it for us for 2021. As some of you know, we will not be meeting next week. We take a break between Christmas and New Year. So in honor of, whatever holidays that you choose to observe. And we hope that you're able to spend some time with people you love, and stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you on January 5th in the new year with Tyler Hayes and Amy Kuzensky. I also want to thank my fabulous co-host Laura Blackwell for a great year Story Hour. And Cliff, thank you also so much for joining us in hosting duties. Cliff Winnig, everybody. All right. Good night, folks. Happy New Year. Be well.